Hello, Lori. Thank you so much for spending some time with me today at Publishizer to talk about your book. Lori Myren-Manbeck is a licensed clinical psychologist and a sustainability advocate. Her book, We Can Save the World, focuses on practical tips and advice on adopting more earth-friendly lifestyle choices. Hello, Lori. Thank you so much for spending some time with me today. How are you doing?
I'm fantastic. Thank you for having me, Bethany.
I'm just so excited to talk about your book and what your hope is for readers as they get to read it and some of the takeaways that you hope people will take with them on their journey. So could you first tell us a little bit about your background and what has kind of led you to the point of wanting to write a book like this?
So I think all of my background has sort of led to this. I was raised by two pastors from the United Church of Christ, who it's a very liberal denomination focused on justice. So my childhood was all about thinking about justice and how we help each other and how we take care of each other. And part of that for me is definitely taking care of the earth. So from that childhood rearing of you should always be looking to take care of the people around you came this natural desire to also take care of the places we vacation and the places we live and the water we drink and the air we breathe. And so that compassion for that came from childhood. And then I actually am a geriatric psychologist. And my goal as a geriatric psychologist is reminding the people I work with how wonderful they are and how much they've contributed to the world, and reminding them that this still can be a beautiful place and that you were never valued because you could cook dinner. You were valued because you smiled and participated and engaged. And again, for me, protecting the earth so that we have beautiful places to smile and engage is all part of the same story. And so as I work with my geriatric clients on kind of figuring out how to live the rest of their lives with joy, I also want to work on making sure that our children can live the rest of their lives with joy and spend time in this beautiful place that we call home.
I love that. You can tell that you have a lot that you put out there as far as what you're giving to, both your clients, but just people within your community, and being willing to kind of create a bridge with the book to make some of these things that you clearly embody with your life more accessible to others. So I'm really excited to dive into the book because I had the privilege of seeing an advanced reader copy of it, and it was just such a beautifully designed book. So I can tell you've also put a lot of thought into the design and the aesthetic of the book. So I don't know if you could maybe hold up a copy. Oh, there we go. So lovely. And there's some really unique components to this book that I'm excited to talk about. But first, I want to talk a little bit about some of the content. So one of the things that I appreciate is that you want to make some of these principles in this content, things that are actionable for people. A lot of times when it seems like we want to find ways to address some of the problems and come up with different solutions, it all feels such a big undertaking. And so could you talk a little bit about what your hope is for readers as they go through the book, and some of the focus that you put on making things really actionable?
So I actually came to write the book because a few years ago, I started a company with the focus on promoting social justice and environmental justice and supporting artists. And the company didn't do as well as I wanted, but as I was researching things for the company and working on it, I realized how much I didn't know about creating a sustainable life for myself, just all the information I didn't have. And so I thought, I want to learn all of this. And as I was learning it, I recognized that the people around me also didn't know big pieces of it, and really simple things like only about 10% of plastics are recycled. So we get the message that this is a recyclable bottle, but the truth is 10%. The rest goes in landfills and stays there. And so that's a big message. That's a pretty easy message actually to deal with because there are glass bottles and metal bottles both of which are almost recycled 100, like they're really well recycled and continue to be able to be used. And so that kind of message, I thought, well, I need to know all of this. So the more I knew, the more I was keeping track of it myself. And the more I thought, it would be nice to provide a simple guide that people can use to little tiny tips, and even tips that save you money. So taking a shorter shower, for example, saves you money on water and heat. Washing your clothes less often saves you money on on water, on detergent, saves the wear on your clothes. And it's also time saving. So the goal with the book was to provide a lot of things that don't cost very much, and at times to prevent alternatives. So the traditional clothing soap that we use, detergent, has a lot of harsh chemicals and isn't necessarily good for our waterways. There's alternatives that are like sheets, laundry sheets that dissolve in the wash. They used to be too expensive, more expensive than the other brands. They're now more in line. And so it was also to give people the opportunity to watch for things. Like, know what you're watching for, and when you can afford it, then it's an easy switch. So our goal really is to provide a book that everybody can look at and say, okay, these are ideas we can use. And I'm going to start thinking about my world this way. I'm going to start thinking through my decisions based on whether it's sustainable.
And I love some of those really specific examples that you give, and some of the other things that you've included in the book. It's very, like I mentioned, it's a very beautiful book. So you've put a lot of thought into the design. So there's a lot of like photos and things of that nature. But I want to call like special attention to what you're doing with QR codes in the book. Could you talk a little bit about the purpose of why you've approached using QR codes in your book the way that you have?
So it's kind of an interesting story about the book was done over a year ago, and I sort of worked on getting it published and didn't really. And so I felt really good about the book. I love the layout. Most of the photos in it are mine, and so I really love that. But there was just something missing, and I couldn't put my finger on what it was. Then I got introduced by a friend to Myren-Manbeck, who is the group that's working with us sort of to publicize the book and figure out how to get it out there. And one of them just said at a meeting, what if you put QR codes? And I thought, like, that's it. That is what I've been waiting for, because the goal now is to create a sustainable book on sustainable living. So the QR codes will link to a newsletter by the Alliance for Sustainability, which is an organization that gets 10% of the profits from the book and has for 40 years been in the sustainability field. And so their work is creating the sustainable future. So there'll be a QR code that links to their newsletter, which every week or every month when they publish it contains new tips and new ideas and stories about good things that are happening in the world around sustainability. There'll be a QR code in the book. There might be a QR code that links to a company that sells sustainable products. There might be a QR code. There will be a QR code that links to Publishizer, so that we can talk about and continue sharing the story of this group that's helping us find a publisher. The goal is to make it a living, breathing document. So I think it is the first book of its kind that will be a sustainable book on sustainable living.
I love that tagline there, a sustainable book on sustainable living. So kind of pulling a little bit from your background as a psychologist, I want to kind of talk a little bit about kind of dive a little bit more into some of these daily like lifestyle adjustments and choices for people that have not had their hands on the book yet. Could you kind of share anything that someone could take with them today to maybe apply to their life and kind of help reframe, kind of what we all feel like sometimes might just be like these huge shifts and adjustments that we might need to make. But could you give any more examples about, small adjustments to the lifestyle and how that can make an impact like in our own behavior over time?
So we all have frames that frames that we use when we're deciding our lives. So depending on what our spiritual beliefs are, we make decisions that take those into account, or our family dynamics, or how we feel about family. So we all have these sort of frames that we bring in. And the goal of the book is that you and everybody who reads it will start just adding that sustainability frame to the decisions they make. So they'll look through that lens. Anytime they're making a decision, they'll kind of question, how does this fit into my goal to live more sustainably? If it doesn't, how can I offset that impact? So there might be things that you choose to do anyway, which everybody does. I'm not going to take a 1-minute cold shower. So there are things that I do, but I might then donate to an organization that offsets that cost to the environment. So the goal really is to have people just shift their thinking so that it's a part of the equation for them. And what I think is important about the book and about my own philosophy is that we are not asking everybody to march. We are not asking everybody to do everything in the book. We're just asking people to have it be on their screen so that they're thinking about it. Because my own experience has been, the more I'm thinking about it, imperfect as I am, the more I'm thinking about it, the more I want the companies I support to think about it. The more I want the government I support to think about it. The more I want my friends to know about it. So I think the goal with the book is to start that conversation. And the reason the book is designed the way it is, with pictures and easy to read text, is that our goal is to have it sit out and be kind of a conversation starter. And having the book title, We Can Save the World, that brings in this sense that it's all of us together. And then the tag, the little tagline is Mars Can Wait. That's that catches people's attention and makes them kind of pause. And so the goal is to make the book the start of this conversation. And the reason it matters is that if every one of us start framing things that way and start expecting more from our government, from the companies that we work with, more companies will switch over and use hemp for their clothing, which is a more sustainable. The hemp is sort of a magical fabric in that it breaks down, it's antibacterial, it wears really well, it's hardy, it doesn't take much water to grow, it doesn't take pesticides to grow. So hemp is a pretty amazing fabric. But the more we sort of say to companies, yeah, I'm going to spend a couple dollars more and buy 1 t-shirt instead of 2, but I'm going to look for fabrics that I know are well made. I'm going to look for companies that are paying their employees a livable wage, because part of creating that sustainable future is also taking care of each other. It's all so interwoven. And so that's the goal of the book, is let's start this conversation and let's have it be on everybody's mind, just as a part of the way we're living and a part of the way we're protecting each other and caring for each other.
Mm-hmm. That's really amazing. So I understand that, and I've appreciated from the jump that you are kind of donating even a percentage of your own pre-sales revenue to an organization. And if I understand correctly, you also serve on the board of the Alliance for Sustainability. Could you talk a little bit about that organization and what drew you to it, to kind of work with them in that capacity and continue to support them through the publishing of your book?
Absolutely. And also, just to throw in, we're also planning to have a tree planted with every book that's purchased. And we have not yet made that connection with the organization that we'll be donating to, but just to say that too. So there's this tangible thing that we'll be able to hopefully have pictures of the trees that have been planted by the sales of the book, which I think would be really wonderful. So the Alliance for Sustainability is a 40+ year, I think this actually is our 40th anniversary organization that has, over the course of those 40 years, been pretty instrumental in getting things passed in the UN as far as agriculture and organic farming and other guidelines, and it's sort of been at the forefront of talking about, how do we change our patterns so that we're not polluting the air and the water as fully, and continues that mission today. So right now, one of the primary focuses is on a program designed specifically for youth and children. And I'm blanking on the name of the program, but it's on their website, and it's one of the primary pieces outreach. Sorry, I just got tongue twisted. It's one of the primary pieces of outreach from the organization, which I like very much, because I think in a lot of situations, if families are working on this together, it really makes a difference. And if children can learn things themselves and teach their parents, that's amazing. The goal of the book is actually also to be able to be used by families. So there's a piece on travel, and I can imagine families sitting down together and saying, okay, we want to go on vacation. How can we use these tips about travel to, cut back our footprint on the earth, to make our travel as eco-friendly as possible while still enjoying ourselves and having a wonderful time. So that, I think, would be really amazing. And the other thing that the Alliance is doing right now is they actually have a pledge that people are being called on to sign, which is about this creation of a sustainable future where everybody thrives and the earth can breathe and continue to thrive as well. So those are two of the things that Alliance is doing right now. And the reason I joined is that I like them. I think that they're passionate, and they're people who share these values and who really do want the world to be a better place and are hopeful and full of celebration and joy at the same time that they're recognizing the things we have to do. And for me, that's kind of a key thing to this. It's why the book is, designed in a pretty way, and it's designed in a forward-thinking way rather than here's all the mistakes you're making right now. Because I think we all need to have joy in our lives, and it's harder to work for a cause if you're not also joyful and loving the things you're doing.
That's so true. And I think there's a lot of benefit to being in community with other people that share those same passions and that same interest in furthering a cause, like sustainability. And I love that initiative with kind of focusing on the whole family and engaging children. Especially appreciate this well-rounded view that you've got between multiple generations. So I think you serve as a bridge, and I think that was even a way that the book was described in some of your synopsis. Is Dr. Lori's interactive coffee table book stands as a vital bridge, encouraging individual participation. And I think that's so beautiful. And I also really appreciate how you've got the tree aspect. I didn't want to breeze over that too much, because that's a really beautiful part of this example of how we can make a positive impact within the model and the structure of how everything is done. So as you're offering this product, you're creating a real tangible, I like how you point that out, the tangible aspect of an actual tree being planted with the purchase.
And I want to point out that the book cover, so this is actually a tree. It's tree bark. It's a photo I took of a tree in California, which is this amazing, beautiful, colorful tree. And so that also just feels to me like a wonderful tie-in with donating a tree, that the cover of the book is actually a photo of this gorgeous tree in California. So, the tie-ins are important, and relationships between us and the earth and between us and each other. I just wanted to highlight that one of the things I'm extraordinarily excited about with the QR codes is that we'll have a place where people can upload their tips, and they can maybe upload photos, their nature photos, so that we can have this community that shares their stories as well. The goal with the book, frankly, is that we will never have to write another book like this, because we will have so much background, so much information coming through the QR codes, that this will be sort of the platform for that. But you can get this increasing information and have this communication with each other as we all grow as a community. And also we'll have QR codes that might lead to contests or challenges that we have, that, we may have some sponsors who give a prize for a contest on creating food, for example, with native food. So that's one way to be sustainable, right? Is to use local food. And so maybe we'll have a recipe contest sometime with local food recipe contest. And so all of those things just create this, again, it's a community. And I think we need communities. There needs to be some shared goals around something positive and energetic and hopeful. And that's, I think, what we're aiming for.
Oh, amazing. Oh, the community piece is so, so key. If I understand correctly, you also have created a place on Facebook with a group that's kind of focused around ethical living that you manage. Is that correct? Could you talk a little bit more about that?
Yes, that is actually a group that my sister runs most of the time for us. And what we try to post is every day. I think we're on a little bit of a hiatus, but we will be back to posting every day a story about hope regarding our relationships, regarding communities that maybe are overlooked sometimes, regarding tips for sustainable living. So the goal is to use that whole, so the definition we like of sustainable living really is creating a world that is safe for everyone and where equity is really a key. That's what we're going for, is equity and protection for the earth and all the creatures who live here. And so that's the goal of the Facebook group, is to have this community, and that our goal is to have that grow. There'll be a link to the Facebook group. There'll be a QR code for the Facebook group in the book. And the goal then will be to have that community grow as well. And the stories of, I've been pretty amazed since my sister has done a lot of it. I often don't know what she's going to do before she posts it. And I've been amazed at some of the incredible stories she's told and shared, and history of people that that I didn't know about before I saw them on the page, and stories of tremendous sustainability efforts that are going on around the world, because there's just so much. There's so much wonderful, so many wonderful stories of people who are, with the coral reefs. There are groups of people who are cleaning the coral reefs and replanting coral reefs. That's incredible. And so I think sharing those stories is a powerful thing. I also have had a podcast, and we'll restart that again. We're thinking in the spring or summer. And on the podcast, I interviewed people who were sort of in this whole sphere. So people who talk about justice in all avenues, whether it's environmental justice or social justice, and talk about the things that they're doing to, again, create the sustainable future that we all need. And it's so much fun. Like, interviewing someone who is doing something remarkable is just amazing. And what I love most about it is, my opinion, Bethany, and I suspect you share this, is that everybody has something remarkable about them that they can share. And often people don't even, I've interviewed people who don't understand just how powerful they are, and how the thing that they think is small is actually really big to the people around them and makes a significant impact in their community. So the podcast will also be relaunching, and we'll have a link to that as well.
Oh, that's so exciting. I love that. I love podcasts in combination with a book, because it's just another way to bring that passion to life. And one of the things I just want to say is I really do appreciate this effort that you put into kind of advocating for things that maybe don't let that justice side of you really shines through. Because if you are willing to kind of help, kind of create a voice for either individuals or our earth that doesn't necessarily have a voice in the way that we're used to hearing being spoke, like you're kind of creating a voice. And I think it's a really beautiful thing that you're doing. So really excited about that. I have a couple more things that I want to point out about your campaign, because I think they're really fantastic. But you've got a group that you're working with that's been helping facilitate some of the different like marketing strategies and approaches that you've been putting out with your book. And then you've also got a sponsorship component to what you're offering. So ways to give an opportunity for different companies or organizations to support the work that you're doing with this book. So first, let's just talk about and make sure we give a nice shout out to Mint Mantis and what they're partnering with you on. Could you just give a little bit of an overview of what you're doing and how you're working with them?
So I was actually, I think I mentioned earlier, introduced by a friend, but it's a friend who's a musician, and had connected with them to be sort of his representation as a musician, and just said, he and I were having dinner, and he said, they're just great And I think you would really like them. And when you're talking about your book, I can imagine they'll be really passionate about that. So they're basically a PR marketing firm that their goal is to work with artists and to sort of help artists create the story about themselves that really tells who they are and really shares fully their message. And we met, and it was just this immediate clicking of, this is the group I want to work with. And I will say that I've worked with some other people, and it's hard to find, I found it hard to find a good match. Somebody who is, because I'm often enthusiastic about, well, I'm almost always enthusiastic about what I'm doing. I'm passionate about my work as a geriatric psychologist. I'm passionate about the book. Um, but it's hard to find someone who is kind of matches that passion and gets it right away and jumps in. And what I loved about Mantis and Ari and Yana, Yana is the person who's in charge of their social media, and Ari's the CEO, is that they jumped in. They sort of said, "Wow, we love this. Yes." And kind of got, whenever I would say, "How about if we do this?" They would get it and want to run with it instead of saying, "No, no, quiet down. We don't need to do that." So I love their enthusiasm, and I think that they are so supportive and helpful. And marketing is not my thing. I can talk, but I'm not a good marketer. Like, I can talk to you and get you to, I can probably help you see why I believe the way I do, and you probably will even support the idea. But then to get you to purchase something, I'm not very good at that. And they seem better at making that story. So I'm very excited to work with them. And they're also just nice. Like, they're just good. They're just good people. And so it's a pleasure to work with such good people. So I've been really fortunate for that. As far as the sponsorships, they've actually they help with that as well. So they're helping with sort of the, getting things on Instagram. I record some little videos, and then they actually post them, because I actually don't like social media. I don't like being on social media. It's just not my thing. So they're doing all of that, but then they're also helping with sponsorships. And the idea of the sponsorships fits the QR code so nicely, because our goal will be to have, if we have a sponsor who creates toothpaste pellets, which are literally pellets of toothpaste that come in glass jars, and instead of using a toothpaste tube, which then has to be thrown away, the pellets get eaten and the glass jar gets refilled, and there's just no waste, and they're wonderful. So if we partner with a company that sells those, the goal will be to have a QR link on that on the health self-care page that toothbrushes are mentioned on, that could link to that company. And maybe that company will have a coupon that people can use for a discount when they try the products. Or maybe they'll have a contest, or maybe they'll have a story, just a story about why this matters. So I think that the sponsorships, it's a fun idea to connect people with businesses that are actually providing the things that they want to buy, so that they can learn more about them.
Well, and I think it's really nice that even just by reading your book, you can kind of get to some resources that are already vetted by someone who's really invested into really doing the work to understand what a company might be doing to really make something, with no waste. That's absolutely incredible. So I would also love if you could just kind of talk through a little bit of the content and the flow of the book. I think we've mentioned already that there's a lot of beautiful visual components to it, but could you just share a little bit about what the reader might expect as they are reading the book itself?
Absolutely. So the book is laid out sort of in 3 sections. There's an introductory section where we talk a little bit about why we're doing this, and I think we're going to add a few more things to that. But then the book is laid out as clothing. So your clothing choices, what can you do with your clothing, how you take care of your clothing, but also purchasing. How do you make those decisions to get clothing that is best for the environment? And the second section is on food. So everything from organic gardening to, if you go to a restaurant, take your own containers so that you're not taking home more plastic containers. And then the final section is on lifestyle. And that section includes, and actually that may be the one that has the containers. The food one may be more organic gardening, if you're going to purchase meat, what you should be looking for in meat, those kinds of things. And then the lifestyle one is going out to eat and going on vacations. And then at the very end of the book, there's a little plug to, write letters, to pay attention to join organizations that are doing the good work, pay attention to who you're buying from and what they're saying about sustainability, but also what they're doing. And there are, we don't have this linked yet, but there are actually places where you can go online that will give you lists of the most sustainable companies and explain why. And for the companies that aren't doing as well, they can even give you information about what you could do. Like, what could they do to be better? So I think all of those things are at the end, towards the end of the book. And then there's a really great reference section. So right now, when I first wrote the book, because I didn't have QR codes, the reference section was very messy, because it included a lot of websites. And so if you just type those out, how to get to the website in typed out form, it's messy. But now the QR codes will allow you to actually scan a QR code, and then you'll get all the references that talk about laundry. Or you'll scan another QR code and get a list of children's books that you might use for helping your children understand why protecting the earth is important. So that's another fun thing about the QR code, is it will actually allow the book to be more attractive, because those lists of websites, articles, it's unruly, but a QR code can go directly to them. And so that's a really nice thing.
Oh, 100%. I think you've put a lot of thought and clearly a lot of effort into what you're doing with this book. So I know that I can't wait to see it published and available to readers everywhere. And I think anyone who's had a chance to tune in to this conversation today. And Lori, thank you so much for your time and for sharing your heart and passion behind what you're doing. Congratulations on all of the success and support so far. And I know that there's many great things to come for this book, and for your passion for what you're doing in the work of sustainability. So yes, thank you again for your time. Any parting words as we wrap this up?
Yeah, again, I would just say that we can do this. This is something that we need to start thinking about it, and we need to act, but there are lots of things we can do, and just putting it in front of ourselves and challenging ourselves to think about it is wonderful. And doing that in a community where we can keep telling stories and keep learning new information, whether it's this community or you find another, I think doing that in community is a wonderful thing. So thank you so much for having me on, Bethany. This was really fun.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you so much.